If you're looking to grow some impressive pec, then we've got you covered because today we're going through 5 of the best exercises to build your chest. All right, let's get into it. Exercise number 1 that I'm going to talk about is a classic, which is the barbell bench press. Now, spoiler warning, I am going to talk about the dumbbell bench press later, so I'm not going to cover that here. But one of the reasons why I like to focus on the barbell bench press in a program is, one, for building chest musculature and strength, but also it provides a little bit more stability over the dumbbell variation. Okay, so when you're setting up, one thing to bear in mind is that it can be a little bit risky, especially if you're benching by yourself. So especially if you're doing a weight that's quite challenging, try to have a spotter available if you can, or a machine that helps to save you if you end up in a position where you might be struggling with the bar. But when you're getting into position, from here, we lie down, get a grip width that's comfortable for you. Everybody is a little bit different. For myself, I normally recommend with clients that we start by using a thumb width from the knurling here, okay? Just to get a decent starting position, but it may change as time goes on. Some people prefer a wider grip. Some people prefer a more narrow grip. Sometimes people use this to focus a little bit more on the triceps, but we're gonna start here for now. When you're here in this position, try and create a little bit of a wedge. Chest can be slightly up and have your feet firmly planted on the floor. And then from here, I try and keep my thumbs wrapped around the bar. There are some people that like to do what's called a suicide grip. This can be a little bit risky for beginners, so I tend to advise not to start with it. You can try it later on if you feel confident, and again, if you have a spotter. But normally start by wrapping the thumbs around the bar, lift up here like this, and then control down, trying to get a full range, okay? We don't want to cut the movement too short, touching to just below the nipple line as a starting position, and then pushing up where the bar is over the shoulders at the top. So I control down slowly, getting that depth, and then driving up. In terms of the position of the elbows, it can be a little bit uncomfortable for some trainees if the elbows are very flared out to the sides. So I tend to advise that you tuck the elbows a little bit as you go down. So they're not quite 90 degrees to the torso. They're somewhere more between, let's say, 75 and 45 degrees in that bottom position. And then control and push strong out of the bottom of the movement. Exercise number 2, as I said earlier, is going to be the dumbbell bench press. So there's reasons to have both barbell and dumbbell bench press in your program at different points to build a good chest and to build good strength. One of the best reasons to have the dumbbells can be simply because you don't have a barbell available, but it also does provide other benefits like allowing you to get a little bit more range at the bottom, which can allow you to work more on the stretch position, which can be very, very beneficial for hypertrophy. And also, if you don't have a spotter available, it's a little bit safer to do the dismount on a dumbbell bench press versus something like a barbell bench press. Okay, so even before we start doing the reps, one of the things that I want to talk about is the setup when it comes to doing your dumbbell bench press. And what I mean by that is getting into the correct position. Because especially as you get stronger, it's not going to be as easy to just kind of curl the dumbbells up and lie down. It's going to be very heavy weight that you're dealing with relative to your overall strength. So when you're actually setting up, what I advise is that in this position, deadlift the dumbbells up from the floor or from something higher up if you have it, even better, and then put the dumbbells on the knees and sit down so that you're in this position. From here, then I can use my legs to help me lift up into this position. Now you'll see some people do one at a time. Some people will do both at the same time. It takes a little bit of getting used to. But once you do and you find the method that you feel comfortable with, both are fine, really. But from here, what I do is I'll use my knees to help lift the dumbbells up into position, and then I'm set up nicely. Now from here, one of the best things about using dumbbells over a barbell that I didn't talk about earlier is that it allows you to freely move your elbow position. So on the barbell, I talked about not going into a guillotine press, which is a wide one if you have problems with the shoulders. It's much easier to do this with dumbbells because they're just freely moving. So I can get into even a neutral grip if I want, where my elbows are very, very tucked in, or I can go anywhere between that and this super flared grip if my shoulders can tolerate it. From here, we're just going to go for a semi-pronated grip, so the elbows are going to be somewhat tucked. And then from here, most of the other points referring to the barbell bench press are going to be the same here in terms of chest slightly up, keeping stable with the legs, driving through, and trying to maintain the semi-pronated position at the top and then controlling the weight as I go down. Going even lower if I can go slightly past the chest to get a deeper stretch in this position as I go down and then drive up strong. Exercise number 3 that we're going to talk about is the incline press. Now, you can see me stood here next to the barbell, but this applies to both barbell and dumbbell. Essentially, you want to have some sort of incline variation in your program to target the upper chest a little bit more. Now, in terms of the incline angle, it can be normally around 30 degrees is what's considered ideal, but this can be a little bit flatter or it can be a little bit more upright. It's just going to change slightly the ratio of chest and shoulders that are being targeted. Okay, so in terms of execution, a lot of the stuff that we talked about on the barbell and dumbbell variations will carry over to the incline press. So here, looking at the barbell, when it comes to grip width, you can basically go for the same sort of thing that we talked about earlier. So you can use a thumb width from the knurling here just to set yourself up. In terms of the chest position, this one maybe not quite as pushed up because this can allow the chest to get a little bit more involved. And when I say chest, I mean sort of like the lower and mid chest, but because we want to target the upper chest, it's actually better to keep this a little bit more down. And then in this position, we get here, we're just going to control down, not quite below the nipple line, a little bit higher on the chest, but still trying to get that full range, control down, and then drive up fast. So you're just here, controlling down slowly, touch to the upper chest, and then drive through. And again, when we go to the dumbbell variation of incline, you can see same things apply. Elbows slightly tucked, driving up here, controlling down in this position, touching to the shoulders if I can, and then pushing up again. Exercise 4 that we're going to talk about is flies. Now, flies are a fantastic movement because they help to work on the shortened position. They give you a little bit more tension when the arms are out in front of you versus, say, a bench press where you're getting a little bit more tension in this stretched position. Now, we're going to talk about machine flies and also dumbbell flies. There are a lot of different variations that you can do here, and most of the rules apply to all. For example, cable flies are also an option, but we're going to go through one of the most machine-heavy variations and then something that you can do if you have no equipment or very minimal equipment available. Okay, so one of the first things that we need to think about when we're setting up on the machine here is the range of motion. Everybody's going to have different ranges of motion that they can access depending on their shoulder mobility and if they have any previous injuries and things like this. So you'll see on most fly machines, you'll be able to adjust how far back we set the handle. Now for myself, I can tolerate the maximum range. So that's the range that I like to do so that I can get a good stretch and a good contraction. But say, for example, if I was having pain in this end position, then I could set this a little bit further forward to make life a little bit easier for me and give me less discomfort in that position. So from here, I'm going to set this back. Then I'm going to get onto the seat here like this. I want to have it in a position where my arms are relatively close to being sort of 90 degrees to my torso when they're extended out like this. Okay, so if the seat is too high and my arms are all the way down here, I may want to adjust it a little bit so that I can get into the position, and vice versa if it's too low. Now, when I am in this position, I can just bring the handles out like this. However, again, if I do have some discomfort, that what I can do from here is do one at a time. So I would use both hands to help me bring one forward. And then this way I don't have to stretch quite as much to get into this position here. From here then, I want to keep the chest out, control back. I can allow the elbows to bend a little bit as I'm getting back into this position, which will take some tension off the biceps, which we don't want any tension on the biceps really if we can help it. So this will help to take tension off the biceps. But as I'm coming out in front, I want to think about pressing through my palms. And here I do want the arms relatively straight so I can really feel the tension on the chest. So I can control back like this, slightly bent arms if I need to, take tension off the biceps. Then I can extend out here like this with the arms relatively straight. You'll see here as well on this machine, there is the option to go for a pronated grip, which is also fine. And again, the same rules will apply. So from here, I can come out. You may feel a slightly better contraction here. And then I control with the elbow slightly bent. But again, my advice would be to stick to a variation that feels the most comfortable for you. So for example, if you try the pronated grip and it is causing some shoulder discomfort, then switch to the neutral and vice versa. Exercise 5, the last one that we're going to talk about is push-ups. Now, it's a very basic movement, but it's also very adaptable and very useful to know because if you have good execution and you know how to increase and decrease the difficulty, then you can adapt it to multiple situations, okay? If you're traveling, you have no equipment, this is still something that you can do very, very easily and push yourself very hard if you know the right adaptations to put in. Okay, so in terms of the execution here, the main thing that you want to focus on is maintaining stability, regardless of what variation you're doing. There's a few ways, like I said before, that you can make it easier or harder, depending on your level. So if we were talking about one of the easier or easiest variations that I would say would just be staying on your knees here like this and getting into the position here like this as you go down. Now, the rules apply for all of these, that you want to try and maintain a relatively straight line from your shoulders down to your knees or your feet, depending on what variation that you're doing. So what I mean by that is you don't want to be sticking your butt up in the air as you go down here like this, or caving your hips here like this. Okay, this is going to reduce the effectiveness of the exercises. So you want to maintain a relatively straight line here like this. Control, go all the way down, nose or chest touching the floor, or close to it if you can, and then drive up. So if I want to make it more challenging, I can extend the legs, and then I'll have my feet out, again maintaining that straight line as I go down. And if I want to make it even more challenging again, so if you're still finding that quite easy, then another thing that you can try is getting something to elevate the hands. So you could use plates. I have yoga blocks here, which are perfect, but you could use plates. You can use certain dumbbells if you have, say, like the hexagon shaped ones, which will stay on the floor without rolling. But from here, I will use these to elevate my hands. And then again, I can get even deeper, get more of a stretch, and go even lower, which will make this even more challenging. Okay, and then just one last little tip to kind of help you out in terms of the positioning with the setup. When you're here, if you don't know where to put your hands, then one way to gauge it is to just lie down flat here like this, put your hands around your chest height, so around your nipple height, and then just go out about one hand width. This normally, for a lot of people, will be a good starting position. You'll see that my elbows are somewhat tucked, similar to when I'm doing, say, the bench press variations with the barbell or the dumbbell. But this should set me up relatively nicely to perform my reps with good form. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like. And if you have any ideas for other videos, other exercises for us to cover, then drop it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.